Hello, my name is Nathan Wicke, and this is a perspective theory on the COVID-19 pandemic. It was written by me April 20th, 2020. Existentialism defined is, quote, a philosophical movement that stresses the individual's unique position as a self-determining agent, responsible for making meaningful, authentic choices in a universe seen as purposeless or irrational, close quote. That comes from dictionary.com. Spiritualism defined is, quote, the belief or doctrine that the spirits of the dead, surviving after the mortal life, can and do communicate with the living, especially through a person, a medium, particularly susceptible to their influence. And I added this. These dead, surviving after mortal life, include God, Jesus Christ, and loved ones, family members. The medium of communication by which the living do communicate is personal prayer, inspiration, and revelation. The person, a medium particularly susceptible to influence the living, is the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, and even Jesus Christ or God Himself. Getting back to spiritualism definition, the belief that all reality is spiritual, close quote. I added this, a supreme being, all-powerful, all-knowing, God, Jesus Christ, Holy Ghost, is behind everything that happens. It's their will in quotes, according to their plan that it happens. Getting back to spiritualism definition, quote, insistence on the spiritual side of things, as in philosophy or religion, close quote. And I added this, religion explains spiritualism. That definition comes from dictionary.com. It is my theory these two philosophies considered together give further enlightenment and understanding regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. The greatest gift privilege we enjoy in life is relationships. Relationships are not a right. A synonym for relationships is companionship. We live off of relationships. Or rather, we keep living and stay alive because of our relationships. Relationships keep us going. Our relationships with each other and our relationships with a higher power, God, as described just now in spiritualism. What are relationships? Relationships are what we do or don't do with each other and with God. What do we do in relationships? We spend time with each other. We talk to each other. We play, work, and make love to each other. We hug, kiss, snuggle, cuddle, listen, talk, teach, comfort, cry, mourn, sacrifice, eat, live, laugh, love, and care for one another, among other things. Relationships give us love, friendships, companionship, marriage, and families. Our first and primary relationship is with God. God, in this perspective theory, is defined as a heavenly father and mother. We copy God's relationships with us in our own families. Our relationship with God is a template, a pattern parents follow for their relationship with their children and families. For example, in families, a mother and a father are the parents of their children. God is our heavenly parent. We are God's children, spiritualism. Parents have expectations in their homes for their children. Youth and teenagers are included in this definition of children in this perspective theory. Parents call these expectations rules. House rules, home rules, guidelines, directions, commands, or instructions they, quote, expect, close quote, or require their children to follow if the children want or seek the continued care of parents and to be and remain part of the family. God, our heavenly parent, has expectations for us, His children. These are called, quote, command, close quote, ments, or commandments. These are God's rules, guidelines, directions, commands, or instructions that he, quote, expects, close quote, requires us, his children, to follow if we want, seek, desire God's continued care, and if we want to continue having a relationship, companionship with God. Parents take care of their children by giving them love in the form of food, clothing, shelter, physical, emotional, and psychological attention. Parents like being with, spending time with their children. Children like being with, spending time with their parents. Parents like their children, quote, honoring, close quote, them by giving them their attention, by listening, talking, following, obeying, and communicating with them. This fills parents with a feeling of love and respect for their children. When children follow and obey home family rules, parents feel, quote, honored, close quote, and feel love from their children. Parents feel this love and respect from their children, and it fills them with motivation, which is love from children, which comes from God, to continue to love and care for their children. Said another way, parents keep children healthy and well. Parents' love for their children keeps children alive, and children's love for their parents keeps parents alive. Fill parents with the children's love, which keeps parents filled with energy and strength to again keep caring for their children. Children love and show appreciation to their parents, caring for them by loving their parents. This loving, caring cycle between parents and children repeats itself over and over again in families. I add this side note. When children don't love their parents, do parents lose their title, power, or position as parents? No. When parents don't love or care for their children, do children lose their title, power, and position as children? No. When children ignore, rebel, reject, neglect, disobey, or refuse their parents, the parent-child relationship is strained, fractured, injured, damaged, and separation or divorce may occur. This may look like parents and children having limited to no contact, interaction, relations, communication, or companionship with each other for a limited, prolonged, or indefinite amount of time. If children rebelled from their parents, they would refuse to believe in them, follow them, or give them their time or attention. If that happened, children would act like their parents didn't exist. And if children did this, their parents could do nothing for them because their children wouldn't even acknowledge that they're real. When children don't believe they have parents, they wouldn't know to turn to them, go to them for caring. It's not that parents don't want to care for their children, but it's that the children don't believe or think their parents exist. And when children don't believe in parents, which is having faith in parents, they wouldn't even know they'd have someone they could go to for loving care and support. Eventually, children would die because they wouldn't have anyone to care for them, because they wouldn't know they have anyone to care for them. God, our heavenly parent, takes care of us, their children, by giving us love in the form of life, which is breath, air, oxygen, Earth's atmosphere. They give us energy and power, which comes from the sun, and spiritual attention, support, which is intelligence, thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions. Emotions include hope, comfort, calmness, encouragement. And they give us merciful endurance and deliverance from diseases, such as COVID-19. They give us deliverance from hurt, pain, and death at times. When children ignore, reject, and rebel and disobey parents, children receive consequences. Sometimes these consequences are natural. For example, when parents tell children not to touch a hot burner on the stove and they don't listen and obey, they get burned. It's not that the parents purposely gave children the consequence of burning their hands, but that the children suffered the natural consequence of getting burned by touching something that's hot. A hot stove burner doesn't discriminate. It will burn any human, young or old, who chooses, remember existentialism talked about choosing, who chooses to touch it when it's on and hot. It was sure meaningful for the child that chose to touch the hot stove burner. They learned to never touch it again if they want to stay healthy, safe, and well, to not get hurt or feel pain. At other times, parents' consequences to children are created by parents. For example, when a child uses vulgar, profane language to talk back, in quotes, verbally disrespect a parent, the parent imposes a consequence of their choosing. Or when an older child violates a home curfew, home rule, and returns the car home late, the parent may impose a, quote, grounding, close quote, consequence to the child, taking away their privilege to go out and socialize for a time, and taking away the privilege of using the car. Parents often use consequences that withhold and remove privileges and things from children when they choose to ignore, reject, rebel, and disobey them, the parents. When needed correction is warranted, to encourage, motivate, and teach children to honor, cherish, and value their relationship with their parents and families, parents sometimes impose, quote, timeouts, close quote, on their children. Timeouts are when parents remove, withhold their children from direct physical companionship, interaction with them, and any or all family members. Isolation is involved in timeouts, when children are called to go to their rooms or go sit in the corner facing the corner for a period of time. This discipline, teaching, is employed by parents to hopefully teach the child something related to the home rule infraction, which hopefully causes the child to want to return to and enjoy the full, warm relationship, companionship, and loving care of the parent and family, to be part of the family again with all the loving privileges, security, and feelings those relationships bequeath. Again, parents use consequences to teach children something, which is the primary way parents show, not just tell, their children they love them. As children learn and prove to parents they can be trusted, children receive more and more privileges, freedom, autonomy, and confidence in them from their parents. This confidence increases trust and respect within parent-child relationships. This trust and respect increases loving care in both parents and children for each other. Their relationship grows stronger. Parents and children's relationships joy increases because they joy each other more. God, our heavenly parent, does the same thing we do as parents. God gives us consequences. Why does God do this? To punish us? No. God does it for the same reason we as parents give consequences to our children, to discipline or teach us something. During this COVID-19 pandemic, some ask, why is this happening? Why is God doing this? Why is God letting this happen? If there is a God, why is He letting this happen? Is God punishing us? I add this side note. Some today even believe God to be a galactic authoritarian, dictatorial, punishing type of referee, always watching and waiting for us to mess up, foul up, screw up, make a mistake, break a law, so they, God, can smite us down and punish us, tag us out, or even eject us from the game, which is the game of life. Some think that God is up in heaven, looking down on us, recording daily tally marks in their heavenly ledger, waiting until the marks reach a certain number so they can and will drop, quote, the boom, close quote, on us and destroy us. Many today don't see God as the kind of loving parent we naturally are with our children, exercising tenderness, grace, kindness, gentleness, mercy, nurturing, help, teaching, and care. I think that view and belief of God is preposterous and ridiculous after what and how we feel for our children. And the irony of our feelings for our children is that our parental loving feelings come from God, our heavenly parent. God gives us or gifts us our loving, caring feelings we feel for our children. So why wouldn't or shouldn't we think that God feels and cares for us the same way we feel and care for our children? The only difference is God is perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful, and knows perfectly the end from the beginning. God is in control of everything. We are not. We have limited, very limited view, understanding, and knowledge. We really don't have a clue of what's happening and why. That's why control over others is an illusion. God, our heavenly parent, does know what's happening and why. So that's the end of the side note. Back to the perspective. So what is God trying to teach us with the, quote, consequence, close quote, of this COVID-19 pandemic? To remember them, to not ignore them, to not neglect them, to not disrespect them, to not reject them, to not rebel against them, to not disobey them, to not take them for granted, to teach us that they keep us safe, healthy, and well from any and all viruses that kill us, from a COVID-19 virus that we know little to nothing about, which we have little to no control over or defense for. They are trying to get our attention, like we try to get our children's attention through a consequence we give them when we want our children to listen, follow, and obey us as parents, so we can keep them safe. We have forgotten God. We even reject God. We choose to think, believe, and act like they don't exist, that they're not real. In doing so, we're ignoring, rejecting, disrespecting, neglecting, disobeying, and rebelling against them. If our own children did this to us, their parents, how would we feel? If our own children treated us in these ways, what would we do as parents to with our children? If our own children cease to think, believe, and act like we don't exist, that we're not real, how would that make us feel as parents? If our own children ignored us, rejected us, disrespected us, neglected us, disobeyed, or rebelled against us, how would we feel and what would we do to get them to remember us, to believe in us, to listen to us, to value and cherish their relationships with us? We might do just what God is doing with us with this COVID-19 pandemic. We might withdraw, prohibit, take away all relationships from our children. To teach our children the value of our relationship with them, we might do what God is doing with us. God is saying to us, okay, if you neglect and abuse your relationship with us by choosing to forget us, not believe in us, act like we don't exist, reject us, be ungrateful to and for us, and think that you don't need or want us anymore, then we won't allow you to have and enjoy relationships with anyone else. A timeout. Like your family, friends, or anyone. We'll make it so that you can't even be around each other, that you can't hug, kiss, touch, or even be close to one another, even at a time of death, such as in a hospital. We'll make it so you can't comfort each other when you want to or need to. We'll make it so that you can't spend time with each other or around each other. If you don't value, cherish, care for, or appreciate your relationship with us, then you don't get the gift and blessing of having a relationship with each other or anyone else. That's called tough parenting. We as parents know that. We'll withdraw protection for you with the earth we've created for you from harmful viruses by making the elements that normally keep the viruses in check not operate and function in their spheres as well anymore. With this consequence, you'll get seriously ill, even deathly sick, if you spend time with or around each other, because that is exactly what a virus will do to you and your relationships with others. It will cause you to stop and limit your physical interaction with your loved ones and friends. We would understand God giving us these consequences because they are not punishing us. They are just trying to teach us, remind us to remember them. This is exactly why we would do this to our own children, to get our own children to remember us, their parents, and to cherish, value, and nurture their relationship with us. We would not do this to punish our children, but to help them learn that they need us. And we want them and want to help them, but we would never force them to believe. Remember, cherish, and value us, or to nurture their relationship with us. That would be coercion and cause resentment from them toward us, and take away their free will agency, which is explained in existentialism. We would give these consequences to our children that God is giving to us, and then wait patiently until they decided to come home, back to us, talk to us, listen to us, cherish and nurture their relationship with us. We then, of course, would most generously, graciously love, care, help, and nurture them, even deliver them from sickness and illness. So how have we forgotten God? How have we chosen to disbelieve God and believe they don't exist? We've done worse than that, all that. We've chosen to replace God with other things and people. We've chosen to put others and things above, before, and instead of God. We've chosen to tell God by how we act and what we say that God is no longer important to us anymore, that we deny and don't care about our relationship to them anymore. We've replaced God with others, women, science, ourselves, our own revised golden rule, money, neglect, worshiping others and things, spouses and family members, and with pleasure, comfort, ease, and entertainment. We've replaced God by thinking, believing, and acting like we are the superior intellectual beings in the universe, that we are superior, better, higher, and greater than others, or even God, because we have education, knowledge, degrees, and know science and mathematics. We replace God with others, thinking, believing, and acting like others are better than us, and even God, because they're educated, have degrees, have intellect, knowledge, because they are a professional athlete, a Broadway movie actor, actress, singer, lawyer, engineer, politician, professor, and have more money than us and are more, quote, successful, close quote, than us in whatever they do. Most, quote, success, close quote, is ill-gotten gain, gotten without integrity. We've replaced God by even calling these people and professionals, quote, idols, close quote. We know what happened to idols in Moses' day. All the blame is not squarely on these people or professionals. We who worship them and idolize them are equally to blame for placing them above God in us, replacing God with them. We replace God with women. Women demand to be worshipped. They say that they want to be respected, but respect to them means worship. They demand to be placed higher than God, our heavenly parent. How would we feel as parents if our children demanded us to worship them? Some women even despise, hate, and want to replace God with themselves. Imagine if our children despised, hated, and wanted to replace us, their parents, with themselves. How would we feel? Women, even women who claim to be, quote, Christian, close quote, think, believe, act like, and some even have the arrogance and audacity to say that they are superior, greater, higher, and better than men, and even God. Even though most women don't have honesty to openly, directly say it, because women lie and say one thing but mean do the opposite, which is hypocrisy. They believe, think, and act like they are superior to men and even God just because they are, quote, women, close quote, because they give birth to babies. The evidence of this is found by pro-choice advocates who say it's a, quote, woman's choice and right to abort, close quote. Completely intentionally disrespecting men who shared their semen and sperm with them, which fertilized their eggs, and God, who placed his spirit children in the physical body a woman will or did give birth to. And by the way, pro-choice advocates never talk about a man's choice or right. How would we feel as parents if our children, our daughters, treated us this same way? If they lied to us by saying one thing and meaning doing the opposite? We could never trust them. Women's emotions, chemicals, hormones, and menstrual cycles are not in capital letters, an excuse for their actions, thoughts, or behaviors. They're not even a defense in a court of law. They evidence just the opposite, that a woman is not fit to take care of herself, care for her husband, her children, her family, or anyone else, if she does not get help, change, and take responsibility for her own emotions, hormones, and chemicals. And women never would accept this excuse from men. That men's emotions, hormones, and cycles, and yes, men have cycles too, made them behave some way. There is no double standard. How would we as parents feel and think if our children told us the excuse that their emotions, hormones, and chemicals made them do it? Of course, we don't accept that as excusing or for condoning their behavior and actions. Neither does God, our heavenly parent, us. Women hate being told the truth that they give birth but not life to babies. Only our Almighty God, our heavenly parent, gives life to all babies, to all of us, each day. Women don't. God, our heavenly parent, sends down his spirit children, us, to inhabit, to slip into the physical bodies women and men make together. Don't misunderstand me here. I don't degrade, discredit, disrespect, or am ungrateful to women for conceiving and for going through the pain of childbirth. But that doesn't make them superior to God or man. Again, it is only God, our heavenly parent, who gives life to babies and to each of us each day. How would we feel as parents if our children disrespected us by telling us or acting like they are the ones who give themselves life each day? Of course, we would think and feel that that's naive and ridiculous, not to mention immature and childish, wrong, inappropriate, and not acceptable by us as parents. We would correct their thinking. So is God, our Heavenly Parent, correcting our thinking and us experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic. We might even think and say to our children, fine, if you think so, then provide and take care of yourself from now on and see how you do. Now we know how God feels about us, His children, when we have this attitude and treat them this way. Now, perhaps we can understand how God is letting this COVID-19 virus ravish us now. We do not degrade, demean, marginalize, disrespect, or slander women by stating they are not God, not superior or greater than God or man, and are not lower than man. Women are equal to with men. We are not degrading and disrespecting women when we respect and honor them in their rightful position and roles as women. We as parents feel and teach our children the same things, which we are not degrading and disrespecting them when we respect and honor them in their rightful position and roles as our children. We've replaced God with science, saying, thinking, and believing that science tells us everything about everything, and that the superior force intelligence in the universe is science. We replace God with scientists, doctors who believe they are superior, which is a God complex, to everyone else and even God, that they, not God, heal people. This is galactically ironic to me. Science and scientists say and believe they only believe in what they can see. They cannot see this COVID-19 virus with their naked, natural eyes. So then it must not exist. They don't even fully know how or where it is transmitted. And one other irony, if science and scientists are superior to everyone else, and even God, why can they not even cure this COVID-19 virus? This proves they are not God. Don't misunderstand me here, or accuse me of hating science. I do not. I believe in science. I am a scientist myself. But I also believe in God, my Heavenly Parent, first and foremost. There is a need and a place for science and scientists, but it is not to replace God. After all, God is the one who gives us science and gives us scientists our thoughts, ideas, and intellect. Even Einstein admitted this. We replace God with ourselves, thinking, believing, and acting like our education and degrees make us superior, higher, better, and greater than others, therefore making it acceptable for us to be condescending to others, treating others in demeaning, belittling, and marginalizing ways, taking advantage of others, all in the name of, quote, competition, close quote, and making a, quote, living, close quote, earning a dollar to support and provide for our, quote, families. Replacing God in this way because we are not what God thinks of us when we choose to treat others in these ways is the worst form of uncivil behavior. Excuse me, let me repeat that. Replacing God in this way because we care not what God thinks of us when we choose to treat others in these ways is the worst form of uncivil behavior, because we are aware and know we are choosing to do it. And for those who say it's not a choice, existentialism, don't get mad or angry when another does to you, to your family, to your children, what you did to them and others, or their family, or other families, or to their children, other children, because according to you, that wasn't a choice for them. This is where many would say you can't have your cake and eat it too. To treat others in this way, thinking you're the first in the history of the world to think about doing it, and so therefore makes it acceptable, is the worst form of ignorance and hypocrisy, which is very ironic. Ignorance is the sign of an uneducated person. Education and degrees does not teach, make one do or choose the right thing, does not make one a civil or a good person. We, in our professional lives, know the right thing, but do not always do the right thing. How do we feel as parents when our children know the right way to treat their siblings because we've taught them, but then they choose to treat their siblings the opposite? Now we know how God, our Heavenly Parent, feels when we do this to each other. We've forgotten and replaced God by treating others how we know we shouldn't treat them. We've replaced God by doing what they don't want us to do, to treat others how we don't want to be treated. We replace God by tarnishing the golden rule into a pile of worthless, rusted metal shavings which blow away in the wind to the four corners of the earth. We replace God with money. We replace God's golden rule with our own golden rule, which goes like this: whoever has the gold rules. We treat those who have money as better, superior, higher, greater, and smarter than God and us. How would we feel as parents if our children thought and treated us like they were superior and better than us when they got and had money? Yes, we replaced and are disrespecting God by worshiping things money can buy us. Our brand name, brand new used cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, airplanes, technology, smartphones, and our virtual reality instead of worshiping God. That's a supremely sad irony. We cherish and value our virtual, fake, not real reality more than we cherish and value our real, living, actual heavenly parents, God. Our children cherish and value their time online with virtual games and relationships more than they value us, their living, real parents. We know how that makes us feel. Imagine how that makes God, our heavenly parents, feel when we do the same thing to them as their children. We've replaced God by not talking to them, by not praying to them. If our children didn't talk to us, how would that make us feel as parents? Just because we can't see God right now is no excuse. You told your college student child whom you sent off to school to not forget you, to not forget to call you and talk to you even though they could no longer see you anymore. If they didn't call and talk to you just because they couldn't see you, you would be hurt, heartbroken, and offended as their parent. Now we know how God feels when we don't talk to them. We've replaced God by worshiping our homes and possessions instead of worshiping them. We spend more time and attention on our homes and possessions than we do nurturing our relationships in our families. We show we love those things or persons we spend time on or with. We replace God by demanding that our homes, kitchens, or any other possession or amount of money is not good enough, sufficient enough for us. That's ingratitude. We have to constantly have better, more, and newer. What we have is never enough. We don't accept and thank God for what we have now and use our excess to give help, bless, and make others who don't even have sufficient for their needs so they can be equal to with us. How would we feel if our children never were satisfied and appreciative of what we, their parents, gave or give them? How would we feel if our children didn't help their siblings? Siblings are equal in the eyes of their parents to one another, as we taught them to do. They will follow our example, for better or worse, which either shows them how to remember and honor God or not. We replace God with our spouse or family members by fearing the reaction they have or might give us after we've needed to stand up for ourselves against them, reprove them, or tough love them. When we do this, we put them ahead of God, higher than God. We should never fear them more than God. We may not receive a spouse or family member's love and support after standing up to them, but we will always feel and receive God's support when we fear God more than our spouse or family members. Remember, God has and is all. Our spouse and family members do not and are not. How would our adult children feel later in life toward us as their parents if we corrected, reproved them back then, which would have taught them a lesson which would possibly make their lives healthier and happier now as adults? How do we feel that our parents did not correct and reprove us back then, which we now know would have made us better adults today and helped us to avoid pain and sorrow we're now experiencing? Not that parents are to blame for our choices, our lives as adults. They are not. And we are not to blame for our children's choices as adults. We all parent the best we can at the time we are parents. Parenting is a learning project. We correct our children because we love them and know better than them. So too does God, our Heavenly Parent, correct us, COVID-19, because they love us and know better than us. We replace God with pleasure, comfort, ease, and entertainment, doing what we want to do when we want to do it. By ignoring and disobeying God's rule to keep the Sabbath day holy, we are replacing our God's will with our will, with what we want. How do we feel as parents when our children ignore and disregard us and do what they want instead of doing what we've asked them to do, especially when we know what we've asked them to do will help them and bless their lives? How would we feel as parents if our child ignored and disobeyed our instruction we knew would fill them with rest and strength to continue on each week in their lives? How would we feel if our children didn't want to spend one day with us? We are telling God we don't want to spend one day with them when we don't do on the Sabbath what they've asked us to do. God wants to be intimate with us and strengthen us with His spiritual strength on their Sabbath. So again, why is God letting this bad virus happen? Why does God let bad things happen to good people? Do we as parents let bad things happen to our children? Are our children good? Why do we as parents let bad things happen to our good children? Of course we don't. Neither does God, our Heavenly Parent, us. Why don't we as parents save and deliver, shield and protect our children from all bad things, from all bullies at school and work, from all hurt, pain, sorrow, illness, sickness, disease, and even death? Does this make us bad parents? Does this make us not exist? No, of course not. We as parents know that our children's immune system, physical, emotional, mental, grow stronger after they've recovered from a sickness challenge. We know that our children grow stronger by facing bullies at school. We know that our children learn and grow when we don't save, deliver, shield, or protect them from all bad things, from all hurt, pain, or sorrow. We know our children will grow stronger as they feel and suffer even from a broken heart by being rejected by one they love who does not reciprocate their love. We know as parents our children will have a stronger relationship with one in the future who cherishes and values their broken heart because their boyfriend or girlfriend's fiance's broken heart was once broken as well. We as parents know that this life is a time of learning and growth for our children as they venture through hard things. We as parents would never want to deny these gifts of life to our children, even though it causes us, parents, pain as well by us seeing our children go through them. Neither does our Heavenly Parent God want to deny us. Their children these gifts of learning and experiencing through hard and painful at times they may be for us and them. So, what can we do? What can we do? We can do the same thing we teach our children to do. We can go to our Heavenly Parent, God, apologize, say sorry sincerely, and value them in our relationship with them with more respect, honor, and obedience. We can show them we need them and want them, like we desire from our own children. Do we need some great local, state, national, or global executive policies to tell us what to do to be delivered, freed from this pandemic? No. Are all who perish, live, recover, or are asymptomatic from this pandemic disrespecting, forgetting, or replacing God? Of course not. No. Death is a part of life, just like living is a part of life. God uses viruses, sicknesses, diseases, trials, challenges, and other sorrow-filled, heart-wrenching life experiences to show us they are God. To show us they call some of us back home to live with them in heaven. And to show others of us that they do have supreme power and that this power is used by them to heal us. They know we need to see and understand that we learn they are real when we see them heal us, when we know that science and nothing else we do can heal us. They know after we see them heal us, we will feel and know that we can be at peace because we now know that they are the ones who delivered us and freed us and are and will continue to care for us as long as our appointed time on this earth is. They want us to know that what we go through in our individual lives is exactly what you and I personally need to go through to teach us what we came to this earth and mortal life to learn, do, and experience. And that's explained in the definitions of spiritualism and existentialism. God can and will heal us individually on a child-by-child basis from this COVID-19 pandemic if we go to them and if it is their will to heal us in this life and not bring us back home to them. But it's according to their time, not ours. We do the same thing, exact same thing with our children when we're disciplining them. We decide when and if their, quote, timeouts, close quote, is sufficient. Then we release them from the quarantine of staying in isolation in their rooms. We tell them they can come out and rejoin and enjoy us in our full, loving, caring relationships with them. What can we do to remember God? To not ignore them, to not reject, neglect, disobey, rebel, or take them for granted? What can we do to understand and get through this tough COVID-19 pandemic experience, including its associated financial and social challenges going forward? That's a personal question for each person. But just as we as parents want our children to come to us and talk to us, so does God, our Heavenly Parent, want us to talk to them. We can start there. We can reach out and talk with God the best we know how. We can talk to God just like we talk to our parents. We can call God by name like we talk to our parents by name, and just pour out our souls to them. We can ask them for peace, comfort, and calmness, whatever we feel we need. We can ask God to help us hear them, to recognize them helping us, talking to us. We can ask God in our private, personal, secret prayers, which can be anywhere, anytime, to help us recognize that they are talking to us. We can ask God to help us listen to them, just like we as parents listen to our children, and just like we like our parents listening to us, even as we are their adult children. We can thank God for all they've given and continue to give us, like we hope our children thank us. We can ask God to help us know what we personally need to do to nourish, cherish, and honor our relationships with them. Then we can ask God to help us have the strength to do what they want us to do. Change is hard for us, just like it is for our children. In talking to God, we can even get mad and angry with them. Children get mad and angry with parents. God is a perfect parent. God will not punish us, demean us, belittle us, or do anything other negative thing to us for expressing our true feelings. We as parents don't punish our children when they get mad or angry at us. We know what they don't know, like God knows what we don't know when we're in pain and hurting and going through a hard thing. God will help us in a very personal way if we go to them. This doesn't mean that God will save us from dying. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to us. Death is definitely not the worst thing to God, because when we die, we return to God. God may not deliver us from sickness, this COVID-19, death, or whatever else we might think is the most terrible thing to us in life. But God will always help us. If our family members or we die from this virus, God is calling us home. And He's calling our family members home. Death is not the end, though it is painful to us. Everyone will eventually die. How and when, none of us know. To get to this mortal life on this earth, we had to die in heaven and leave God, our Heavenly Parent. Our death here on earth is a birth back home to heaven to return to God, our Heavenly Parent. The thing worse than death is not to experience, value, appreciate, and cherish all our relationships while we're blessed with them. We appreciate and cherish all our relationships by treating each other the way we wish to be treated, with kindness, compassion, and love. The key is to be grateful for our relationships and to thank God for them. That's explained in existentialism and spiritualism. This perspective theory was peer-reviewed by Dr. Catherine Caesar, ed. D. Thank you for listening.